And it is at this point that MacDougall really brings his genius before us, because after this chord, which we musicians call the dominant, one would expect to have what is known as the tonic. But instead of that, in a fit of white-hot inspiration, MacDougall does this. And so the symphony comes to an end on a sad note. Well, not the symphony, but the first movement. Now this is in fact a two-movement symphony. The second movement is considerably simpler than the first, which forms a sort of relaxation after the tense originality and the profound symphonic complexity of the first movement. The second movement is in fact a sort of relaxing rondo where MacDougall whisks his listeners away with him on a fund of jollity and a round of happiness. It begins with a very perky little subject, rather like a sort of whistling or walking tune, which one might have in one's mind on a summer holiday in high spirits. It comes first of all on 3 piccolos. Now, after the piccolos have had this, it is taken up by a bassoon solo. And at this point, the piccolo joins in again. Now, that is the first subject. It's followed by an interlude or first episode, which we shall call B. And back comes the first subject. The second episode is very short indeed and consists of a little passage for the strings. And back comes the first subject. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is an analysis, or at least the most I can give, of MacDougall's wonderful masterpiece of modern music, the Symphony in C. Now, this work is being played, as you know, by the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, conducted by Jascha Horenstein, in this evening's symphony concert from the Festival Hall. The composer, we hope, will be present. And I would like you to go to that concert this evening with a little more understanding of the work. It is a difficult work to come to grip with, complex, profound, daringly original, and perhaps not the layman's cup of tea, but I hope my short talk on it will have enabled you to see that it is, at any rate, one of the greatest masterpieces of modern music. Now, if you have any questions to ask, I will do my best to answer them. Yes.
Mr. Hopgood, you know, I've been thinking about this. Why is it you don't get Bach and all these folk using chords like that? And they wrote some very good stuff, you know. Now, why is it necessary for folks to go on to this highfalutin stuff? I think it's a lot of show myself, you know. I mean, these rum pum 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 things. I think it's a lot of. Well, I don't think there's out to it myself. I think it's a waste of time.
Well, Mr. Slaughter, isn't it? Mr. Slaughter.
Ah, that's right.
Yes, now, Mr. Slaughter, I'll try to deal with your points one at a time. There are rather a lot there. Now, first of all, I'm not quite clear what you mean by Bach and all these people.
Well, you know, Bach and Beethoven and Mozart.
Yes. Secondly...
I mean, they were all alike, weren't they?
Not quite, Mr. Slaughter. Not quite. Secondly, You say this highfalutin stuff which you consider to be show. Now, what is the highfalutin stuff, and what do you consider to be show?
Well, I mean, all this. I mean, there were some very unusual chords in this symphony by MacDougall.
Ah, I see. It is you're referring to the harmonic idiom.
All these here queer chords. I mean, they were not like that in Handel and
yes, quite, Mr.
Mozart
Slaughter.
and
Yes,
Bach.
yes, quite, Mr. Slaughter, quite.
I mean, was there?
No. Well, no. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Slaughter has brought up the very question that I knew somebody was going to ask. There is no doubt at all that MacDougall is a very advanced composer, that he uses chords which even we trained musicians find rather difficult to understand, at least on one hearing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the secret, or at least the road to further understanding. One hearing is not sufficient for a passage for full orchestra that goes like this. But I would assure Mr. Slaughter that MacDougall is by no means either highfalutin or a show. Mr. MacDougall is a profound thinker. He has spent years creating, expanding, enlarging, developing and maturing his harmonic idiom, and all composers are deriving great benefit from the study of his harmonic vocabulary. Any more questions, ladies and gentlemen?
Mr. Hopkins, would you say that MacDougall in this symphony shows any of the influences of such composers as Bartók? You say that Mr. MacDougall's life story is not very important, but I do seem to remember that MacDougall spent quite a lot of time studying with Bartók. Perhaps I'm wrong. I think that is the case, and I do feel that there is some influence here. Do you think this is a good thing?
Well, it isn't true to say that MacDougall studied with Bartók, nor is it true to say, as Professor Ebenezer Triggleshamp did in his recent book on contemporary music, that Bartók studied with MacDougall. In fact, the two composers' paths never crossed. There may be a slight acknowledgement of Bartók in MacDougall. There is certainly some acknowledgement of MacDougall in Bartók, but I wouldn't like to put the point any further than that. As regards your final statement, sir, I don't think it is either good or bad. I think it is inevitable.